was still flying headlong into the glass, though a little slower now, with much less enthusiasm as it tired. Zzz, dunk, zzz, dunk, zzz. She walked quickly across to the window, just as the insect spun and dropped, exhausted, onto the sill. The voice in her head was not her own. It was a male voice, a boy's voice, and it spoke in a strange accent she didn't recognize. "Open the window," the voice said. Rachel did as she was told and watched as the bee crawled slowly up onto the edge of the window, then waited for a few seconds before taking flight. When the bee rose up fast and flew back towards her face, she remained completely still and unafraid of being stung, as though the voice in her head had calmed her. As the bee circled twice round her head, she followed its movements, seeing the gold and black fur on its back revealed in astonishing detail, clapping her hands across her ears at the deafening beat of its wings, and watching as it finally veered away out of the window. Rachel Newman stared, almost hypnotized, as the bee zigzagged its way into the blue, dancing on the thermals, a whirling speck against the New York skyline. Part 1. The Chalk Circle. Chapter 1. Rachel came to with a start as the carriage door slammed. The clattering rhythm, the heat and the plush interior of the old train must have lulled her to sleep for seconds, minutes. She didn't know how long. She'd caught a little sleep on the plane, but now the lag was starting to catch up and she felt strangely floaty. The reassuring bleeps and electronic melodies of Adam's PSP were still there, as they had been on the night flight from New York, on the high-speed shuttle from Heathrow, and on the 9:32 a.m. train out of Paddington. It felt odd, such incongruous modern noises, as they rattled along in antiquated branch line deep into the West Country. Rachel couldn't help but wonder what their next form of transport might be on this seemingly endless journey. Steam engine? Pony and trap? Donkey? Rachel smiled wearily at her brother as he looked up briefly from under the peak of his Yankees cap, eyes momentarily off the game, but ears still plugged with his Pod's white earbuds. Adam seemed happy enough in his self-contained world, alone with his computer game and the thrash metal pounding in his ears. They had been alone in the carriage for the last hour, but now they had been joined by someone else. As the old lady perched a large wicker cat basket on top of the luggage rack, Adam widened his eyes at his sister. The lady turned and nodded at Adam, who shifted awkwardly to one side as she shuffled her expansive bottom into the dusty red seat next to him and took out her knitting. The only other person Rachel knew who knitted was Granny Root. Every year, a misshapen sweater or cardigan made from scratchy wool would arrive from England. It would be 5 sizes too big, with one sleeve longer than the other, or tiny with a neck hole too small to accommodate a human head. When none had arrived last Christmas, they were almost disappointed, but by then Rachel and Adam had grown out of grand sweaters in every way. Celia Root was the grandmother they had met only once when they were babies. Mum's mum, who, in all the twins' 14 years, had only managed to make a single trip to New York. They'd spoken twice a year on the phone, Gran's posh-sounding voice crackling down the transatlantic line, on Christmas Day and on their birthday, sounding like something from an old radio play. There were photos, too, and Rachel had loved to look at those old black-and-white shots of a trim, striking woman in lipstick, with smart clothes and elegantly styled dark hair. The hair was still immaculate, but white in the more recent pictures, and, though the clothes were softer in earthier colours, the bright red lipstick was still in place. It was difficult for Gran to get around these days, though that wasn't the only reason she'd never been to visit. As she'd got older, Granny Root had developed a terrible fear of flying. Mum, on the other hand, enjoyed flying all over the place, but had never seemed all that keen on getting them to England before now. She had told them that she hated the place, that it was stuffy, class-ridden, and strangled by its own sense of history, whatever that was supposed to mean. Even if she'd wanted to go, her work had never seemed to fit in with their holidays anyway, and so summers were mostly spent in Cape Cod, in a regular rented house near the beach. Now, though, with the stuff going on between their parents, a trip to England had finally seemed like a good idea.